theyeshiva.net.
Okay, page 198, Ois Gimel. You see Seif Gimel, we're holding chapter 3 of the Maimer, the last Ois, and the structure. Ois Aleph discussed Mazen. He said that you have the three inyanim of Mazen, Bayis, Lavush, and Oilam, Shana, and Nefesh, if you remember, which means in the world, in time, in a person, in Torah, in mitzvahs. So he started off naturally with the source. Well, he started off with the physical, the Mazen, Lavush, Bayis. He went to the source of Mamale, Soivev, and Atik. In Siv Beis, the parallel in Torah, mitzvahs, and in mitzvahs themselves, the two categories of mitzvahs. And from there was the whole brackets about how it's reflected in a person's avoid in terms of Nasiv and Nishma, and in terms of the brachas of Yitzchak to Yaakov. From there he described how it was by David HaMelech, Malchus, leadership, what leadership is, and thus concluded why the Chanukas Beis HaMikdash needed the Simcha, Mizmor Shir, Chanukas Abayis LeDavid, and yet even a greater Simcha, and finally concluding the way it's expressed in a home, not just in terms of a physical home, but a home as a metaphor for a family, for children, which of course come through a marriage, which is also called a home. V'hiskin mimenu binyan adayad. So from here, from everything we learned, we have a whole new hergish, a whole new appreciation for what the Gemara says in Shabbos. I mentioned that Rabbi Yossi said, I never called my wife my wife. I called my wife my home. At first glance, it's like, okay, but it's really an amazing thing. My wife represents Mazain, represents Lavush, Pnimi, Makef HaKarav. Beisi represents a relationship that is L'cha'ira Makef HaRachik. It's remote, but the reason it's remote is not because it's really remote, is because it's in a much deeper place. The connection is so powerful that it's even beyond what the person can experience of that connection. Because all experience is always through a filter, through a net, through an instrument, as explained at length. So Beisei Zu Ishtai is not just, okay, you have a house, you have a wife, you have a home, which is also a powerful idea. But there's a whole deeper understanding of which dimension of marriage and relationships he was addressing in terms of the bias, as we explained what a bias is. And paradoxically, although a person doesn't buy a home every day, some people do, but most of us don't buy homes every day, and every month and every year. It's something that just remains, it's enduring, together with the fact that it's physically remote from the person. It doesn't sit on your body and certainly doesn't get ingested in your body. You don't eat your home. You could eat yourself up over your house, but usually you don't eat your house, and hopefully you don't never have to eat yourself up over the house. There's a relationship between a person and a home that is permanent. A person who has a home is different than a person who doesn't have a home. It's true physically, it's true psychologically and emotionally. A home is not just, I have a dormitory. This one sleeps in a hotel and I have a home. So you have a bed. Of course, a home is also that you have a bed. You have a place where you can go. But as they say in English, there's an expression, home is the place. What's the definition of home? Home is the place that when you knock on its door, they got to let you in. That's the definition of home. When you knock on the door, they just got to let you in. You don't have to give a reason and a justification. What's tustada? What are you doing here? I go to somebody's house. How can I help you? That's the definition of it. And when somebody doesn't have that, the Gemara says in Yevamis, Samach Beis, actually in the sugya of Rebbe, Talmidei Rebbe Akiva, the Gemara says they call me shein lo bayis, a person without karka, without a bayis, einoi adam. Which is einoi adam? You don't say a person without a meal one day is nishka mensch. Yeah, your stomach is going to hurt. You'll eat tomorrow, Be'ezer Hashem. Obviously, if a person doesn't have food for a while, they can't survive. But it's not suras adam. It's of need. I need to eat. Kol mi shein lebayis einei adam. In other words, having a home, even if I'm on a business trip for 3 months, having a home is something that gives a home to a deep, deep place. It's somehow rooted in the core of the human condition, of the human experience. What he calls here, not just pnimi, not just makif, but makif l'makif. You don't say that about a garment. Of course you need garments. You need garments. It's cold, it's hot. Yeah. Of course you need mazon. But bayis, I always have a home. I'm not always wearing my clothes. Sometimes you're not supposed to wear your clothes. You go into a mikveh with clothes, it's nicht good. The point is, you shouldn't be a chatzitza. But even where somebody is, they still have a home. A home is not a place where I am physically. It's that too. It's a state of where the person is. And somebody who doesn't have such a place, somebody who doesn't have a place that when they come there, they have to let them in. Right? It's very, very painful. Not just in a conscious way. There's no net of safety. Yeah.
People can have houses but no home.
People have houses but no home. Yeah. People have connections and no relationships. Yeah. You can buy a clock but not time. You can buy a house but not a home, etc. That's why, and I think this is not a mistake, in education, sometimes people do this, and in my opinion at least, it's a pedagogical error. When a parent makes a child feel that their connection to the home is not stable, it's like, this house belongs to me. I could throw you out at any, even if they don't do it. I'm not talking about people who throw out people of their homes. That's Likkutei l'shayla. But the feeling that this is not the place where they have to let me in is probably very, very delegitimizing in a deep place, beyond maybe even what the person knows. Because home touches a chord that is beyond the conscious. That's what it does. It touches a chord that is beyond the conscious. And that's why the lashon is always, v'hi beischa kebeis peretz. Binyan bayis bi Yisrael. Yeah, of course, when you get married, you're going to build a home. And what if you rent for 30 years? What's a binyan adeyad, right? Even when people give brachas, a bayis bi Yisrael, a bayis neman bi Yisrael. It's all around the word bayis, because it represents not just more external levels of a marriage and of children and of a home, but also the bias in terms of the broadest definition of bias that he's explaining here in the Shirish, what a bias really represents. Siv Gimel. V'hinei al pizeh yuva, and according to this, we can have some understanding of what the Pasuk says in Parshas Re'eh. Parshas Re'eh, Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Jewish people, Kilei bosem ad ata, el hamenucha ve'el hanachala. He speaks about the fact that until the Jewish people settled in Eretz Yisrael in a permanent place, they divided the land, they conquered the land and they divided it. There was something called bamos. Bamos means under certain circumstances a person can build an altar in his backyard and offer various offerings. It's a sugya mesechtes zvachim, known as the sugya of bamos. A bamos is an elevated platform, like bima, bama is an elevated platform. You can offer individual offerings in the privacy of your space, and it was considered a carbon. However, this all changed when the Mishkan was established in Shiloh with some level of permanence. 369 years after the Jews entered into the land, the Mishkan was wandering. Gilgal, excuse me. Besides Yerushalayim, the Mishkan was in Gilgal, in Noiv, in Givon. But after the conquest and the division, the Mishkan took root. It became permanent in Shiloh, which was Yosef's territory, for almost 400 years. That's a long amount of time. Then later, after David conquered Yerushalayim and he prepared the Harabayas, then Shlomo actually builds the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim, and that's when Yerushalayim becomes the epicenter of the Shechina, of the Beis HaMikdash, and then Bamos become forbidden forever. So the Chazal explain this all in the pasuk in Re'eh. Kilei basar. You could give different offerings in private places because you didn't come el hamenucha vel hanachal. Says the Gemara Masechta Zvachim, it's Kuf Yotes Zvachim. Menucha zu binyan Shiloi. Menucha refers to Shiloi and Nachala refers to Yerushalayim. You didn't come yet to a state of Menucha, tranquility in Shiloi, and you didn't come yet to the Nachala, which is like your eternal inheritance, which is Yerushalayim. He says Chulin. So what's Menucha? Menucha is called Shiloi. But here's the question, what is the real difference between the structure of the Mishkan and the structure of Shiloi? The Beis HaMikdash was of a different entity completely. But Shiloi is also called a Mishkan Shiloi. And the reason is its length, its width, and all of the details and the nuances was an exact replica of the Mishkan. That's how the Mishkan in Shiloi was. Nonetheless, the Mishkan is not called Menucha. On the contrary, it represents wandering. Ve'eyem is halach ba'oil. It's like a temporary tent, first in the desert and then different places in Eretz Yisrael. Shiloi is called Menucha. He says, what happened? It's more or less the same thing, but there was one difference. The difference is, the only difference is in the Mishkan, the beams, the planks, which basically is the wall of the Mishkan, was built of Atzei Eres, cedar wood, umetsupim zav, and then they were plated with gold. When it came to the binyan of Shiloi, the Yiriyas, which are the tapestries that were on the roof of the Mishkan, haya Yiriyas me'avanim dafka. He'll explain in a moment. Ula havin zayis, halay hakikrashim shebemishkan hayikarim harbe yosim min hayiriyas shebeshiloi shahayu me'avanim. Umadua hamishkan loy nikra menucha ubinyan Shiloi nikra menucha. It's an interesting thing that the one difference between Shiloi and the Mishkan had to do with the roof. The roof was the difference. Everything else was mamash identical. In the Mishkan, the beams were made of Atzei Eres, and then they were covered by the Yiriyas, by the tapestries, which went down and covered the beams on the different sides of the Mishkan. And there were different layers of Yiriyas, of coverings, that were all made of animal hide. You had Yiriyas ism of goats, and you had of rams, and you had of Oiris Tchashim. You had layers of Yiriyas from animal hide. It was beautiful, it was colorful, and it was an artistic piece of work. In Shiloi, everything was the same, besides the roof was made of avonim. They made the roof of stones, which later in the Beis HaMikdash, that was the case, but in the Beis HaMikdash, everything was made of stone.
That's what Shittim is saying was the same? No, just the roof was different?
I believe just the roof was different.
Mishkan in Shiloh, did it have anything from the original Mishkan?
I'm sure it had a lot. But the difference was in the roof. The roof they built from avonim. Everything else was the same. Where in the Mishkan, the roof wasn't from avonim. There was no roof. There was Yiriyas. In the Beis HaMikdash, the walls were also stone. You can go today and see what it looks like. You see the types of stones that were used. What we see mostly is Bayis Sheni, but you also have the excavations, racks and Bayis. The whole structure was stone, stone, stone. The walls from stone, the earth from stone, the ground from stone, the roof from stone. There were two parts in the Beis HaMikdash, of course. There was what's called the Chatzar, the courtyard, that didn't have a roof. It just had a wall. And then you had the Heichel, which he's focusing on, which is the inner sanctuary. And of course, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, all part of the Heichel. That's where the Menorah was, the Shulchan was, the Mizbeach Hazav. In the Beis HaMikdash was all stone. The roof and the walls, like a house that's a Beis Chayma, a house that's built of stone, top, sides, bottom, etc. The Mishkan in the Midbar and in different places in Eretz Yisrael, with no stones b'chlal. The earth was made of earth, just natural earth, and the walls were made of wood, as he says, and the Yiriyas were made of animal hide. The Shiloi was a hybrid. Instead of using the Iyarias, everything was the same, but they brought in stones in the roof.
So that's a sheet in Muslim.
Yeah. So he says, "Oy bazeh is a shaila. If this is the case, what's more expensive? What's more beautiful?"
The walls in Shiloh were made of wood?
Yeah. I'm almost sure, yeah. So what?
They make it very strong, also with the arch, hold up the stones. That's how they make the stone with the arches.
Right. You mean hold up the roof. Hold up the roof, right? Yeah. So he asks a shaila.
So all is a Gemara and
Zvachim, yeah. So he asks a shaila, l'cha'ira, you can't compare the richness and the beauty and the colorfulness and the value of the Kroshim and the Iyarias to a roof of stone. It's a whole different, when you read about the Iyarias, it was extremely precious and beautiful. Why is Shiloh then called Menucha and Mishkan never called Menucha? Hatam k'nisker la'el, the reason is ki avonim shehu b'chinas doime mamish zvachim dav kuf yud ches amar aleph. We'll give it. I'll quote you, you'll get the full picture of what he's saying. The Mishnah says in Zvachim, it starts with a Mishnah, Zvachim kuf yud beis. Before the Mishkan was put up, all the bamas were mutter. People would offer in their backyards. Who did the avodah? The firstborn in your family, the Cyrus. Once the Mishkan was put up, no more bamas, and the Koyanim took over. And you have to eat karbanos, either within the Mishkan or within where the Jews lived. This is in the desert. They come to a place called Gilgal. They put up the Mishkan. This is a temporary. So the bamas are still mutter. And the karbanos that you bring in the Mishkan, you eat over there. And the kachim kalim, they can eat anywhere. The kachim kadashim in the Mishkan, kachim kalim anywhere. Bowl is Shiloh. Nesru habamas. The bamas become aser. V'loy haya sham tikra. Okay, this is the word. And there was no roof there. He says, what says there was no roof there? There was no roof. So he says, I got confused. Ela beis avonim bilvad milmaton. V'hayiriyas milmailon. It wasn't the regular roof like they had in the Mishkan. It was a beis avonim milmaton and yiriyas milmailon. So, unlike the Mishkan, which it seems like the Kroshim were made from Atzei Erez and the roof was Yiriyas, the way it was in Shiloh is, they didn't have the regular roof that they had in the Mishkan, nor did they even have a roof of wood. What did they have? They had a base avonim milmaton and the Yiriyas were milmailon. So it seems like the walls were made of avonim, I stand corrected, and the Yiriyas were on top. V'hi hoysa menucha, and that became menucha. And kachim kadashim you eat inside, and kachim kalim you eat b'chol haraya, wherever you could see the Mishkan. Then they came to Noiv and Given, again the bamas hamutter, you can eat kachim kalim wherever Jews live, and then they come to Yerushalayim, nesru habamas v'hi hoysa nachala, and that's called nachala. Right. The roof was exactly like the Mishkan, it was Yiriyas, and the Yiriyas were draped down over rock walls. That's what happened. I stand corrected. I confused the two. Tikra, yeah.
It is went over a beam. They probably
It says v'loy hoyer sham tikra. So Rashi says gag shel nesarim. There was no roof made of wood, planks, or rafters. Yeah. The Mishkan just had Yiriyas, but the Mishkan B'chlal didn't have any stone.
No, but Mishkan had the roof of the Mishkan was the same as the roof of Shiloh.
Yes, the Yiriyas were identical. The difference is the walls. What had beams? The Mishkan?
Yeah, they spread out wood, and then they put Yiriyas on top of it.
Then the Sarim.
No, they didn't. There were no beams. The Yiriyas went from one side of the Mishkan all the way to the other. They attached all the Yiriyas like a blanket. It was a blanket. Right. No cross beams, no. The Mishkan had standing beams, and then the Yiriyas, they attached all the Yiriyas. So it was like a long blanket that you spread over all the way down the length. It covered the width, and then it draped down on the sides. 8 amas, 9 amas, 10 amas, lebedik, in Parshas Truma. Says the Gemara, Minan Mili, how do you know all this? So the Rabbi Yochanan said, Azai, Interesting. One pasuk says, this is Vachim Daf Kuf Yud Ches. One pasuk says, "Vativi'eu beis Hashem Shiloi." Chana brought her son Shmuel to the house of Hashem in Shiloi. Kasav echad oimer, vayitosh es mishkan Shiloi. He abandoned the Mishkan of Shiloi. Nu, vayibas ba'oyel Yosef. Hakeitzat, is it a bias or is it a Mishkan? Keitzat lo hoyser sham tikra el avonim milmaton v'yiriyas milmaila. It was both. If you looked at the walls, it was a home. If you looked at the roof, it was an oil, it was a mishkan. V'hi hoyser menucha. That reconciles the contradictions in Tanakh, how Shiloh is referred to. Got it? Okay. Frag the Balatanya, Yiriyas are beautiful. But what's more expensive? The krushim that were made of Atzei Erez, plated with gold, or Avonim. So obviously this is much more expensive. And yet the Mishkan is not called not Menucha, and Shiloh is erst called Menucha. The Yiriyas were taka the same. But in terms of the building of the walls, fakert, much more dazzling and expensive and aristocratic and royal, the way the walls looked in the Mishkan versus the way the walls looked in Shiloh. And yet Shiloh is called Menucha. It's called place of tranquility. It's called a bias, much more than the Mishkan. Even though it seems like the structure of the Mishkan was far more regal, aristocratic, expensive, dazzling, beautiful, glittering. The glitter of the beams of the Mishkan transcended quite dramatically the lack of glitter in the Shiloh. But Shiloh is called the bias, it's called the Menucha. And the real question, of course, behind this question is, why this difference? Why this like intermediary stage? Like if you're doing the Mishkan, do the Mishkan. Just do a replica. Why? The roof you're leaving like the Mishkan. Only by the Beis HaMikdash you're going to change that. And yet the walls you're already changing. Yeah. The wood was plated with gold.
Here with stones, probably.
No, just stones. Just stones. Not plated. Okay, that's the Vart. The Falamal cooking in a Venik. That's the lesson.
The Mishkan would appear much more glorious.
The Mishkan would appear much more glorious. The Mishkan is always called an Oyhel Moyed, which is like a tent. And the Shiloh is sometimes called a bias. It has this dual character. And it's called, the main thing is V'hi Hoysa Menucha. That's when the Jewish people come to their Menucha, their rest. So he's saying the Menucha, you see from the Gemara, it's not only Menucha because they were there for so many years. It's not an issue of years. The Gemara says, V'hi Hoysa Menucha, after it describes the structure, not how long. Even if Shiloh would have been a year, it's not how long they were there. The Gemara says it was built like this, and therefore V'hi Hoysa Menucha. So the Balatanya wants to understand, why is this called Menucha? The reason is, it comes back to this whole ki avonim shobchinis doimim mamish. Avonim, which is doimim mamish. Let's remember, the walls of the Mishkan are built of wood, cedar wood. That's tzomeach, that's part of the world of botany. The roof is made of yiriyas, which come from animal hide, which is part of the world of chai. Avonim, rocks, in the hierarchy of existence of the world, of the planet, is doimim mamish. Doimim mamish means mamish silent, which means it's called inorganic material, lifeless from a visible perspective. B'china hayoyse tachtoina. It's the lowest form of life because there's no display of life. You have the human being, you have the animal kingdom where there's tremendous life. You have the world of botany where there's also tremendous life, even though there's no movement and not a display of emotions. But there's growth, there's life, there's a life force, there's a vitality. A tree is alive. You can look at it and you'll see it's full of life, and it has its own organism and system of life. When you look at a rock, a doimim, at the surface, it's doimim, it's silent. Silent means there's no growth. There's no motion, there's no movement, there's no consciousness on any level, even on the most basic level of vitality that you see in a shrub, in a bush, in grass, in a tree. Certainly not like an animal. It's doimim mamash. Nonetheless, b'china hayoyse tachtoina, the lowest dimension, but sharsham mibchina hayoyse gavoya. Like everything that comes down to the lowest place, it's rooted in the highest place, which is makif the makif. The makif, which is even makif relative to makif. Mashenkin atzei eres chuli, cedar wood, hubchines tzemeach, is the world of tzemeach, of growth. Tzadik katama yifrach, ke'erez balavonin yiske. The cedar grows. Sharsha hubchines makif kanal. The shirish of tzemeach, which most garments were also made out of tzemeach, not from rocks. Most garments they would make out of pishton, linen, or cotton, or other things that grew. So that's levushim. So the shirish is not makif lemakif, the shirish is makif. V'lachein menucha zu shila. That's why shila is called menucha. Shahaya binyan avonim. Because here, for the first time, there was a structure made of stone. There was no wood protruding. So for the first time in Shiloh, you had a hashra, you had an indwelling, an energy of makif that came into Shiloh. Ein ma shekosum is al pasuk vayigash elav Yehuda in the Maimer vayigash. V'lachein mana harambam zechrein elavracha. V'sefer hachinuch simen tov tzadik beis belavin lo yisita lecha asheira chuli sha'asur lasses bebinyan beis hamikdash shum eitz boilet v'oiver alav lo yisita rak eitz shakua mutter k'may hatikras mipnei shahaya dafke me'avonim b'chinis doimim shesharsham l'mayla. That is why the Rambam and the Sefer HaChinuch, when the Pasuk says in Shoftim, Lo yisita lecha asheira kol eitz al mizbech Hashem alekach. You're not allowed to plant for yourself an asheira. An asheira was a tree that was used for idolatry, but then he says kol eitz, any tree near the mizbeach. So the Rambam learns from here alav that when they built the Beis Hamikdash, you were not allowed to have any protruding wood. You could not see in the structure anywhere a piece of wood, a plank of wood, a rafter of wood, a beam of wood, any component. Eitz boilet, it was an isser. And if you do it, it transgresses this prohibition. They submerged. In other words, they hid in the roofs. There were different pieces of wood that they needed for support, but completely hidden and concealed. When you walked in, what did you see? Stone, stone, stone. Stone on top, stone on the right, stone on the left. North, south, east, west, top, bottom. You saw avonim. In the tikris, in the roofs, they put in beams. Why? Because the structure that was visible had to be only from avonim. In Shiloh, you had an intermediary. The roof was not avonim, it was chai, urias. But the walls were avonim. And there's a big difference between it being protruded and it being submerged. For L'chein, this will explain a very, very interesting phenomenon in history. Amr Razal, the Gemara says, Al Kodesh Shehechmetz. The Gemara says that King Cyrus became sour. He became chametz, meaning he lost his spiritual compass. Why? What happened? Kedesh, you mean? Kedesh with a chaf. Kitziva lasois. You know why? When they were building the second Beis Hamikdash, the Persian king Cyrus said that they should make azay tlasa di even. 3 rows should be of marble, v'chad da'ah, and then 1 row of wood. 3 rows of marble, 1 row of wood. 3 rows of marble, stone, 1 of wood. The Gemara says this in Maseches Rosh Hashanah, Dav Gimel, Dav Dalet. Koresh, whose name is also Daryavish, the Persian heir to the throne of Achashverosh. The word Koresh, the Gemara says, wasn't his real name. Koresh actually comes from the word kosher. Because the Jews loved him so much, they called him Koresh, that kosher the king. And the Gemara there sees an inconsistency. Sometimes he's counted as a Jewish king in our scriptures, and then sometimes no. What's the difference? So the Gemara says, Kan koidim shehechmetz, kan lacher shehechmetz. Cyrus or Daryavish went through 2 stages. Before he became chametz, And after he became chametz, chametz is chametz, vinegar, before he got ruined. So the Monsey says, where do you see he got ruined? Because he writes a letter in the book of Sefer Ezra, he writes a letter to the Jews, and he says the way you should build it is three rows of Evan Galal, which is marble, and then one of wood, 3 of marble, 1 of wood, all the walls of the Beis HaMikdash, the entire structure of the Beis HaMikdash, the exterior structure. And he said, and all the expenses come from me, or from the palace. I'll pay for everything. What's that? So the Gemara says that Shlomo did the same thing. If you read Malachim, he also built the Beis HaMikdash. He also said 3 rows of stone, and then 1 row of arazim, of cedar wood. So the Gemara says it was much different by Shlomo. Goes through differences between his structure in the first Beis HaMikdash and Cyrus' structure in the second Beis HaMikdash. And one of the key differences is that Shlomo, all the wood was submerged inside. You couldn't see it. Inside, he wanted a row of wood for support. Kodesh wanted it on the outside. So the Balatanya says, V'zeh aser kanal. This is prohibited. Liyash b'shum eitz boilet. To have a protruding lumber, protruding tree. Rak eitz shekeya. Why? Shehu b'chines pnimi. Shekeya, when it's inside, it represents pnimi. V'loy makif. V'loy boilet shehu b'chines makif. Hayadavke me'avonim kan. What is pnimi? Pnimi goes inside. That's submerged. That could be eitz. That I don't care. But what's on the outside? That's the makif. Makif is on the outside. That has to be only from avonim. In the Mishkan, not. The Beis HaMikdash only avonim. And in Shiloh, it was already a beginning of it. And therefore it's called menucha. This is already the beginning of a home. This is already a bias. It's makif harachik, because it's avonim.
First had the word for creating, so that it's very easy.
So if you look in the Gemara there, the Gemara says, this is deep. Why did he want a row of wood? So the Gemara says that there was a sinister motive here. He was being so generous. He paid for the whole thing. He thought to himself, Imardu bi Yehudai, if the Jews will rebel against me, I'll be able to burn it much easier. That was his cheshbon. I'll be able to burn it. Because stone, go handle with stone. It's hard to demolish. The eitz, you light a fire, and every 4th row you have eitz, I'll be able to destroy it much easier. That was his whole machshava. In other words, at the surface, it looked like a beautiful, stunning design. Right? But b'pnimius, that was only on a makif level. But really, he probably wanted to burn it down. So he's investing in it, but he's also already preparing for the destruction.
An Indian giver.
An Indian giver, yeah. So that's what the Gemara says. What about Shlomo? He did the same thing. Because the Gemara says that no, Shlomo had the wood only on top. Shlomo covered the wood with plaster, with seed. Number 3, Shlomo shake bebinyana. It wasn't even on the outside. It was submerged in the binyan. All different. By Kodesh, the wood was protruding. But what does all this mean? He says, V'zehu, this is the pshat. It says, Atzei shitim oimdim. In Parshas Truma, you should make atzei shittim, cedar wood, oimdim. They should stand. And they became the beams. Or the pasuk says, kroshim oimdim. So Chazal say on the pasuk, atzei shittim oimdim, kroshim oimdim, that it's srafim oimdim. There's a pasuk in Yecheskel, the srafim oimdim imaloi. The angelic beings called srafim are also standing. The Medrash compares the two. Oimdim, oimdim. What's the connection here? It's wood, beams. Here you're talking about srafim. So he says, V'yifanim v'chayis HaKodesh b'rash gadol. We say in the morning that the malachim, kulam makamalei malchus shamayim zemizeh, and they sanctify Hashem. They say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Who is that? The Seraphim. V'yifanim v'chayis HaKodesh Biraj Gadol, Misnasim lo Masasraf. The Ifanim and the Chayes HaKadosh, which are other categories of Malachim, with a tremendous rash, with a tremendous emotion and commotion. They lift themselves up to the Srafim, and they scream, they declare, they exclaim, Baruch Kved Hashem Emkaim. It says, V'hainu, this all represents Psukei de Zimra at Krishma. The whole avoid from Psukei de Zimra, which is from the beginning of davening, which is Psukei de Zimra, Haidu Baruch Shamar, all the way till Kriya Shema. Hu Pchines Atzei Shittim Oimdim. It's all, the Medrash does it, Oimdim, Maisa Atzei Shittim, Srafim. It's deep stuff. The whole avoid of davening till Krishma is the avoid of Atzei Shittim Oimdim, which is Srafim Oimdim. What does this mean? Hu Pchines Tzaimeach. Represents the state of Tzaimeach, the world of growth, of produce, of botany. This is what creates the Rash Gadol, the tremendous commotion. The Rash, why? Because they so sense the yeshus of the world, the vanity, the egotism, the separateness of the world. Hashem tzvayis, Kaddish, 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 Hashem tzvayis. When they apprehend, when they get the bittul of the world, and they appreciate something of Kaddish, 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 Hashem tzvayis, Malach halaretz kvaydei. So what happens? Hey birash gadol. When the Fanim and the Chayes HaKodesh sense something of the bittul, they are in ecstasy. Masheikin Srafim, Shem Einam Margishim Esayeshkim Efanim. The Srafim don't experience the Yesh like the Efanim. Lachein Heim Oimdim Mimaloi. So they stand, it says Srafim Oimdim Mimaloi. They stand above. Mimal Shchinta, above the Shchina. V'zeu ad Krishma. This is all till Krishma, which is all referring to the world of Tzaimeach. The difference is Srafim or Chayes HaKodesh and Efanim. Two types. Aval haramach tevin shebekrishma. Once you come to Krishma, the 248 words of Kriya Shema, Nikra Ramach Avonim. They're called 248 rocks, stones. B'chin is doimim kanal. Avonim is doimim. V'zel vayikach me'avnei amokim. Yaakov Avinu takes from the stones of the place. What's pshat? Ramach tevin shebekrishma. When Yaakov took the stones to sleep on them, he was picking up the 248 words of Krishma. B'chinas malchus, which are also identified as malchus letters, shei madrega hayosa tachtoina, which is the lowest level. Vayasem mirashosav, he places it by his head. Loitei metachas mirashosav. Doesn't say under his head. Ela meirashosav. Mirashosav actually means above his head. Because the source of Avonim is even higher than his mind and his head. It's beyond his head. Because Moichin represents the Erpnimi, and the Avonim is rooted in the Makif L'Makif. V'zeh, that's what it says, Vayasem Oisem Atzeva. When he wakes up in the morning, he takes the rock, and he makes it a Matzeva. Vayitzik Shemen, and he pours oil over it. Initially, the Evan is only a nekuda, a point, a seminal point, which is under Yesod. Malchus is under Yesod. Yaakov herima. Yaakov lifts it up, vasa matzeva, turns it into a matzeva, which is like a monument. Vayitzik Allah shemen, and he pours oil over it. Himshich b'chinas moichin el yoinim, shemen mishchas kodesh b'chinas chachmei Allah. He pours over it moichin el yoinim, which means a higher intelligence, a higher wisdom, which is known as oil. Oil is called shemen mishchas kodesh, which defines the highest wisdom, chachma. V'zel, and this is the meaning of Even Masu Aboinim Oisel Rosh Pina. In Hallel, we say, David says, the stone that the builders rejected became the cornerstone. Even, there was a rock Masu Abaynim, the builders, disregarded it. They said it's a garnished. Haisa l'roish pina. That even became roish pina. Roish pina means it didn't only go to the top, it became the cornerstone of the edifice. That rock that they were masu, they were repulsed by it. They said, this is a garnished. Haisa l'roish pina. What's pshat? Shebchinas malchus nikra bchinas even. Malchus is a stone. Bchinas daimim, it's lifeless. Bchinas oisius, it's letters. It says in Sefer Yetzirah, shtei avonim chuli. Two rocks is two letters, build two homes. A rock in Kabbalah is a metaphor for a letter. Why? Just like letters together, you bring letters together. How do you build a home? You take many rocks and you bring them together. You create rows of rocks and you have a home, rows of stones. What are oisius? An aleph itself won't do anything, but you bring an aleph and a beis together, shtei avonim, and suddenly you have two homes, Av and Ba, a father and he came. A word is made up of different stones, of different letters, and you have longer words, and then the letters become words, and the words become sentences, part of sentences, and the sentences become part of paragraphs, part of chapters, and part of a book. So that's like assembling together the stones to build magnificent edifices. You can have a small one, you can have a large one. But the ois itself is called an even. V'hainu shebchinas malchus, shehin bchinas doimim, v'hainu shebchinas malchus ubchina tachtoinim mekol hayud tzvidus. Malchus is the lowest of all the 10. K'may doimim shu yoyser tachtin mekol hadalad yisaitis. Just like doimim is the lowest from all the 4 elements. Im kol zeh hoysel l'roish pina. And this even that everyone disregards became the cornerstone. Because the source of the daimim is higher than all the 10 spheres. It's keser elyon, the highest level of keser. The even that mas words. Vayikach me'avnei hamakim. Well, the letters become one. They become a house, takes many avonim and turns it into one. So what's the structure? He started off with the shiloi, why it's called menucha, because there was an element of avonim, and that made all the difference, where the Mishkan did not have that. And that's why in the Beis HaMikdash you can't have any eights. You need dafka avonim. And this was the bigger mistake of Koresh, that proved to Chazal that hechmetz, because he wanted wood in addition to avonim, and this meant he wanted a different type of home. He wasn't ready for the real bias. He didn't want the real bias. And that's why the atzei shittim are associated with the malachim, srafim or efanim, and that's all till Kriyas Shema. Because till Kriyas Shema, you're still not in a place of bias. You're in a place of atzei shittim. The question is if it's on a level of consciousness of srafim or a level of consciousness of efanim and chayes HaKodesh, who have this tremendous rash which the srafim don't have. But that's all atzei shittim oimdim. Srafim oimdim. Once you hit Krishma, it's vayikach me'avnei hamakim, it's the union of avonim. You go to the place of daimim, oisius. That's what happened with Yaakov. He took the avonim, vayasim, he understood it's even higher than his head. And from the beginning, it's only avonim. He pours oil on it and it becomes a matzeva. He lifts it up to its true source, which is Evan, Masu Aboinim Haisel Rosh Pina. The stone that you want to reject because it's nothing, it's meaningless, really becomes the cornerstone. That which everybody, sometimes that person that everybody looks at and says, sometimes in yeshiva you have that classmate and everybody said, from you, and then Haisel Rosh Pina. Yeah. In the media, in the news, sometimes there's a little story, nobody notices it. Editors of newspapers, they get hundreds and thousands of stories, they have to decide where to place a story. It's very important in newspaper work, where you put a story. Is it the front page? And front page, is it on top of the front page, on the bottom, on the right, on the left? How many columns do you give it? what font the headline is. I don't know if you know these things, but if you look at a newspaper, tremendous amount of thought goes into the font, the type, which side of the front page, especially papers that set standards, papers of record that send, it's a whole art. Sometimes an editor gets and the editor decides all these things, the editor-in-chief. The editor gets a story, he says, page 13, on the bottom, on the left, in a little box. And the font, it could be 11, doesn't even have to be 12. It could be 11, it's fine. In other words, for the really bored souls, after they finish crossword puzzles, right? And they play bridge and drink gin, and then they go back to the newspaper a second time in the evening before they fall asleep, they're going to find that story. It's basically that story, yeah? This is called Even Masu Haboinim. Suddenly you discover Haisel Reish Pina. This is the most, in history, this sometimes becomes, people don't know Haisel Reish Pina. So it exists on many levels. David HaMelech was saying this about himself. We're going to see. When he was a boy, he was worthless. They looked at him as a mamzer. We'll soon see. Haisel Reish Pina, a misfit completely. Muzar ha'yisi le'echoi v'nachri livnei imi. Right? Haisel Reish Pina, he became David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kaya. But we have to be toifus the whole real Nakuda here. It all has to do with the doimim of Malchus, with the bias. But this needs some explanation, so Be'ezer Hashem will leave this for tomorrow. I know that it's a lot of stuff and it doesn't seem to be understood, but...
Isn't it like the sensation is the first page and the correction?
That's true also. Yeah. Yeah.
In the Torah, many fundamental things are just hidden away in a little corner somewhere. Like this Christ they find it's correct.
Oh, yeah. Even Masu Aboinim Haisel Reish Pina. Even, the diuk is Even. The doimim, nobody looks at. Okay, but Masber sein, Be'ezer Hashem, we'll try to be at Masber. Very cryptic here. I know, very cryptic here.
I saw in Yerushalayim, in Iyar, they dug out the coin, which dated to the time of Darius, Kodesh. And it says in the coin, Yehud. So it was very
interesting. So on the coin of Daryavish, it said Yehud. Yeah. So the Gemara says that there was a time that they considered him mamish, one of the Jews, to the point that they treated him like a Melech Yisrael. So some argue that it was Esther's son. If it was Esther's son, so then halachically he would have been a Jew. I mean, not culturally, he grew up in the Persian palace, but historically, biologically, so to speak, he would have been a Jew.
So, Rabbi, a leader has to put up a front on the rock, but inside has to be like wood. It's soft and growing. Is that possible? That's what we learned today? The Samikdash was built, the rocks outside, the wood inside. Maybe.
Was a problem.
I'm pretty good. No, the post says, I'm pretty good.
Toichei Ratzav Ava. Ratzav Ava.
So our house is mainly temporal, right? Because it's made out of
wood. Nicht gefährlich. It's Chutz La'aretz.
Why did they make Why did they make the Shul? Just can't get it dressing, can't get it so go straight to Shalayim and Machabis. Why did we go to
They didn't have Yerushalayim yet. It belonged to the Yevusim. It had to be. The Yevusim they could not conquer. They couldn't defeat them. Only David managed to get them.
That was already the plan.
They didn't have that ability yet.
You sure knew what how much to do. I didn't like to know because you sure knew what he was supposed to do. He can't do whatever he's
Yeah, there's a pasuk that the Yevusi who lived in Yerushalayim, la yachlu lahirisham, they couldn't get them. They couldn't conquer it. It remained, and then David HaMelech got it, and he bought off the Harabayas. He also bought the Harabayas, and then he could prepare the plans for the Beis HaMikdash. It's interesting that in the whole Chumash, Yerushalayim is not mentioned. In Parshas today, he keeps on saying, you're going to come to Makom Asher Yivcha Hashem, the place that Hashem will choose, the whole time. When you come to the place Asher Yivcha Hashem, which they understood as Yerushalayim. Yeah. Once, almost. Umalki Tzedek Melech Shalem. Malki Tzedek, the king of Shalem, which Chazal say refers to Yerushalayim. Avram called it, Vayikra Avram Shem HaMakom Ahu Hashem Yireh. And Shem called it Shalem. They put together Yireh Shalem, Yerushalayim. But there's no mention of Yerushalayim in the whole Chumash. Yeah. It says many times, when you come to the place that Hashem chooses, over there, you'll, Parshas Re'eh. B'makom asher yivcha Hashem, right? We say also by Shalosh Regalim, Shalosh Pam Bashana, Yerechol Schorchas B'nadan, B'makom asher yivcha. Always the place he's going to choose. He's going to choose a place, but he never says which place. Ever. In Tanakh, yeah, and in Nevi'im, so of course, David turned Yerushalayim into the capital of the Jewish people. But in Chumash, he speaks about a place. Rashi and Chazal say it's Yerushalayim, the place that he's going to choose, but doesn't say the place. It's interesting. It's a Pella. The Maharal of Prague has a brother. He had a brother. He has a sefer called Sefer HaChaim, the Book of Life. So he says over there, the Torah was trying to say that wherever a Jew serves Hashem, is a Yerushalayim, is a Makom Asher Yivcha. He especially doesn't say the place, because there's the physical Yerushalayim, but the spiritual Yerushalayim is not geographic. It's not a geographical location. Huh? Yeah, wherever a Jew connects to God, he's in Yerushalayim. Hafla de Kavart. Torah will not give a place, because it wants to tell you, don't think, if I give you a name, you go there, that's where it is. Yeah, attack on a physical level, they went there, and that was the place. And you couldn't build a Beis HaMikdash in Monsey. It was Beis Chanya, you weren't allowed to. But the Torah especially doesn't give a place to say that the place that he chooses is not geographical. Yerushalayim's geography became also spiritual. But in Teichen, wherever a Jew connects to the Shechina, that's Yerushalayim. So how it's a Moed de Kavart. In other words, that the point is, every nation in the world has a capital. Every nation in the world has an epicenter. This is a physical capital. This is where the glory of the nation comes out. The structures, you go to Egypt, yeah, you go to Greece, yeah, you go to Washington. The monuments, the structures, White House, this is it. You take that away, that's why 9/11, they wanted to bomb the Pentagon. They didn't only want to kill people. They wanted to destroy the moral. So the Twin Towers represented the financial power of America, and the Pentagon represented the military might of America. And together, you kill two birds with one stone to destroy it, to cut down the soul of America. So that's how every nation, that's how it works. You have a country, and the country has an epicenter, the capital, and there's those structures that represent its essence. And the Jews had it too. Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim, the Beis HaMikdash. In Beis HaMikdash, you had the place of the Sanhedrin. You had Iyar David, right, nearby, David HaMelech, the king. I mean, that was the place. That was the place to hang out. Aliyah L'Regel, Shalosh Regalim. This was the place. This was the hub. Ma'aser Sheni, you had to go to Yerushalayim. All these things. But what should have now been the natural evolution of history, when all these buildings were completely decimated, Jews were expelled or massacred? No, what should have been? What should have been the next stage? The next stage should have been, thank you, disintegration, right? Resignation and assimilation. Where's the Roman Empire today? There's no Roman Empire. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm saying, where is the nation called, the nation that represented ancient Rome? when Rome fell, the people assimilated, became part of different cultures. Where's the Byzantine Empire? Byzantine. Where's the Assyrian Empire? Babylonian Empire? Greek Empire? Ancient Egyptian, Persian Empire? Where are they all? The answer is you can go to Greece, you can go to Egypt, you can see the pyramids, you could see the mummified pharaohs. It's incredible in terms of history, but you're looking at dead realities. So that should have happened to the Jewish people. That's how it works. Because of that, the Torah doesn't mention the word Yerushalayim. Don't think that when the building gets destroyed and goes up in flames, right? It's kaput. You don't have a land, you don't have a capital, you don't have a center. What do you expect? The center by the Jewish people became Makom Asher Yivcha Hashem. So a Jew in Varsha, a Jew in Budapest, a Jew in Johannesburg, in Sydney, or Monsey, right? Is Gesetze mit HaGemara, or mit HaChumash, whatever it is. That was Makom Asher Yivcha Hashem. It was all there. So Hafla de Kenyan. In other words, he made sure that the connection, the epicenter of Jewish life should not be limited to a geographical location, because then they would not be able to survive expulsion and exile. No nation does. It's a normal thing. It's not every nation. That's what happens. You're out of your place. How long can you be a refugee? You have to integrate. People don't realize this. Jews don't realize their own history, what happened. It didn't happen by mistake. It was very strategic. So that's the vart. So that's why he doesn't mention Yerushalayim in the whole Chumash. Makom Asher Yivcha Hashem. And where's that place? On one level it's Yerushalayim, but at other times, wherever a Jew is and he connects with the Shekhinah, that's the Yerushalayim. That's this. So a Jew came home, a Jew in Sosnovitz, or in Krakow, or in Lodz, or in Lublin, or in Lancet. He came home, he worked hard all day, he came home, and then he went to the Beis Medrash, and he opened up an Ein Yaakov, or a Shulchan Aruch, or a Chumash, whatever it is. And he was learning, where was he? In Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim, in the Beis HaMikdash. He was there.
That's where our tefillah is supposed to go, because we take 3 steps back and 3 steps forward to go to Yerushalayim, to Eretz Yisrael.
And he mentioned every day, in other words, it wasn't divorced from the geography, but it was bringing that place into wherever he or she was. That's an incredible accomplishment. They were there. Makom Asher Yivcha Hashem. The Meiri says in Ksuvas, Kol Makom sheyesh bo Torah v'Yerushalayim, dinoi k'Eretz Yisrael. A place where there's Torah and Yerushalayim is like Eretz Yisrael. There was a Yid who wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael, so he went to the Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek told him, Machda Eretz Yisrael. Your avoid is Tzemachda Eretz Yisrael.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.